Welcome to the Lakers Nation news feed. My name is Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane. Today's show is brought to you by Greats. Go to greats.com for an amazing pair of shoes. Use promo code LakersNation when you check out. You get 15% off. I've got a pair, get compliments on them all the time. Highly recommend you check them out. Now, for today, I've got Lakers Nation senior writer Harrison Faigen here to help me break down a few major news stories with the Los Angeles Lakers. Harrison, thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, it's still weird to hear that as my intro title. It's still new enough that I'm not used to it yet, but it's exciting, and thank you for having me on.
So we've got Lonzo Ball is still injured, will not play in the final preseason game against the Los Angeles Clippers, still nursing an ankle injury. Harrison, how big of a deal is this?
I think his career is over. Not, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think it's maybe a little concerning that this injury has nagged so long when it was initially billed as a mild ankle sprain, because I think obviously like a mild ankle sprain, you would not expect it to take this long. But the good news is it looked like, just judging by photos and tweets and stuff from practice, that he kind of went through everything at shoot around today and that they're just being really cautious. So you would think that if this was going to be a lingering thing, like they would have come out with a new diagnosis by now. But it just seems like it's just been a particularly nagging ankle sprain, and they're obviously wanting to be careful with the future of their franchise.
See, I get that, and I totally understand them wanting to be careful, and in preseason games, it doesn't really count for anything, so that's totally fine and everything. But at the same time, I kind of feel like they're losing an opportunity to build a little bit of chemistry with Lonzo, and Luke Walton kind of alluded to that the other day. I mean, Lonzo is the engine for this team, right? So he's the guy that really needs to be out there on the court setting the tone for everybody else. He's the guy that they are building their whole offense around. So I kind of feel like this is a missed opportunity because he's out, but at the same time, I mean, if he's hurt, and there's only so much you can do about that, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely a missed opportunity, and I think that's actually the case more for the prior preseason games rather than this one. I think for this specific one, it's the last preseason game. Generally, teams like barely play their starters in this game, and the Lakers are young enough and new enough that they might kind of buck that trend a little bit. But I think we're going to get some pretty limited action from the starters tonight anyway, so how much Lonzo's presence really would have mattered is kind of up in the air, at least in my eyes.
So the hope is, of course, that he will be able to play in the season opener on Thursday. It sounds like that's going to happen. We'll have to see exactly how he integrates into the team's offense. I contend that Lonzo is actually the player that they can least afford to lose if you look at everybody that's on the floor and kind of just the way they want the team to get into an offensive flow. He's the guy that you really need out there. So unfortunate that he's missed most of the preseason. I mean, he really only played 2 preseason games, and that was it. And then he turned his ankle. But I wouldn't go as far as to say, I've been seeing this on Twitter a bit, that he's injury prone already or that Lonzo is soft and all this. I think that's just complete overreaction. I mean, he had a freak injury where he stepped on a guy's foot. That happens in basketball. It's just the way it goes. Do you agree with that?
No, I think he definitely stepped on the guy's foot intentionally to duck De'Aaron Fox again. I think that clearly makes more sense than the explanation you just gave, that he's just hurt and they're being careful with him. Yeah, no, it's like it's freak stuff, and people like there's a general tendency, I think, to try and draw meaning from things, from like freak accidents just in general. There's a human tendency to do that, and so people are I think trying to draw stuff from something that isn't necessarily there. Like, yes, he got hurt, and yes, that's unfortunate, but I don't think that it's anything more that I don't think that it's telling of going to be something that's going to be a recurring problem.
Sure. It's like on one of my favorite shows, The Office, when Oscar tried to look for deeper meaning in Michael Scott's film. What was it? I can't remember the name of it right now.
Yes, the secret agent one.
Yes,
I can't remember the name of it. Right.
Threat Level Midnight. That was it.
Yes.
Yeah, when Oscar was looking for deeper meaning there, it's not there. It was just a freak thing. Take it for what it was, and it's going to be fine in the long run. So, Harrison, there's one other guy, though, that's not going to be playing, and that's Andrew Bogut, and that means we will not have seen him at all in preseason. For LakersNation.com, I wrote all about the battle for the 15th roster spot between Andrew Bogut, you've got Briante Weber, and then Vander Blue, all competing for that one spot. How does Bogut's injury factor in, or is it even a factor?
I don't think it's a factor, to be honest. He's enough of a veteran that I think that I don't really think that the Lakers needed to see him play in the preseason to kind of know what he brings to the table. And I just have a really hard time believing that he would have taken less money from the Lakers and gone to a non-playoff team when he had offers for more money from the Celtics. And I'm trying to remember the other playoff team that was going after him, maybe the Cavs or something. I don't remember the other one, but he turned down money and the chance to compete for the playoffs to come to the Lakers. And I don't think that he would have done that. And I don't think that Luke Walton would have recruited him to do that if his roster spot wasn't basically a lock. And so I mean, everyone saw Briante Weber tweeting about like this was just the next step in the journey last night. Like, I think it's pretty clear that he's probably not going to make the roster.
Right.
I think Vander Blue, as much fun of a story as he is, and as like as inspiring of a story as he is, I just think that this is just bad luck for him, and I don't think he's going to make the final roster. I think it's Bogut. It would have to be something really, really like a really, really nagging injury for the Lakers to cut him, I think.
It's still a little bit concerning that Bogut is the guy who's coming off of a fairly serious injury. I mean, he broke his leg in less than a minute against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and this was his opportunity to prove that he is healthy and he can still play. And then he's had visa issues and then another injury. So obviously there's got to be some concern there. But when I really look at this, I think, gosh, he's kind of going to be in that like meta world peace role from last year where he's not going to play that many minutes anyway. Most of his value comes from being a veteran mentor. I mean, maybe he pushes Ivica Zubac for some minutes as the backup center or something like that. But for the most part, you're getting value in Bogut by having him there to mentor the young players. So it's not irrelevant whether or not he can actually set foot on the floor. I mean, of course, they want him out there and everything, but you're right. I don't think it's that big of a deal if he doesn't play in a preseason game. Now, I did want to ask you this because you've covered the Los Angeles Defenders, who have now the South Bay Lakers, I should say. You've covered them a little bit. And the Lakers do have one two-way contract left. We know that Vander Blue was very much hoping to get a full deal with the Lakers. Do you see him being a candidate for that two-way contract, or would he just take his talents elsewhere?
I definitely could see him being a candidate for that because I've talked with him a couple times about this, about why not just go to Europe and get paid? Your career is only so long. And every time that I've asked him, he said that that's not his goal. His goal is not to go over and play in Europe or play in China. Like, his goal is to be an NBA player. He knows he's an NBA player. And so I could definitely see him being open to taking that two-way contract that offers a pretty clear path to an NBA roster.
Okay, so maybe we see that happen with Vander Blue, which I think would be at least a good story because he has been with the Defenders for a while now, was the league MVP last season of the D League, which is now the G League, and he's a guy that's been fighting really, really hard. So you always want to see him succeed, especially with how long he's stuck in there.
He's like in baseball. I think they call them, I'm not a huge baseball guy, but I think they call them a 4A player, where they're just like, they're too good for AAA, but they aren't quite good enough in their specific role for the major leagues. And he's almost like that. Like, at the D League level, he's an MVP candidate. He's an amazing scorer, but at the NBA level, he's just not quite good enough to justify that many touches. And then the question is, well, what else is he bringing you? And so far, and he's become a more well-rounded player, but ultimately his main thing is scoring. And if the Lakers don't necessarily need a guy like that as their 15th man.
Yeah, very, very good point. And I actually mentioned that in the article that I wrote the other day. I said that Vander Blue straight up is just too good to be in the D League or now G League anymore. He needs to be on an NBA roster. So maybe that two-way contract will be a way to accomplish that. Last thing before we call it a day here, Larry Nance Jr. starting at power forward once again. Kyle Kuzma reportedly only has a 10% chance of winning the starting power forward job, according to Luke Walton. And Lakers fans booed, or maybe they were yelling "Kuz." I don't know which it was, but they were lighting their torches, grabbing their pitchforks when they heard that Kyle Kuzma only has a 10% chance of being the starting power forward. I kind of feel like Larry Nance Jr. has this locked up at this point, even though it sounds like it's still a competition between Nance and Randle. Given the last 3 games in a row have been Nance's spot to start, it feels like he's kind of got that job. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the coaches were saying at practice today that they were basing it more off of practice than they were off of game performance, which I guess would be the only explanation for why Larry Nance continues to start, despite being like, so far during the preseason, the worst of those three power forwards. And at least statistically and production wise. And so I think it's a little strange that he has the spot so locked up, but maybe he's showing stuff in practice. And I think part of it might be that they're keeping him there because they want to bring Randle off the bench and they don't want to give Kuzma the starting spot right away as a rookie. So maybe they're going to make him earn it a little bit more, although I don't really know what else he could do. Like, unless he's just like kind of dogging it in practice, I don't really know what else he could do on the court to earn that starting spot.
I think there's something to be said for putting Kuzma into a situation where he can be successful, or at least has a high probability of being successful. And maybe that means coming off the bench and getting some minutes against the other team's bench players instead of going up against, say, I mean, like, look, if you start him at power forward opening night, that means he's going up against Blake Griffin. I mean, that's a tough thing to ask
Yeah.
a rookie to do, right?
No, that I think that's a factor too, and I wrote about this a little bit yesterday. I also think that it's the way that his specific strengths complement the bench or help the bench a lot more than they help the starting lineup. Like, it would be great for the Lakers to be able to play like five out with the starting lineup, but then if you look at who that leaves on the bench, if you start Kuzma, where it's you're running out there with either Bogut or Zubats, and then Nance or Randle, and then the rest of kind of the Lakers wing and backup point guard rotation. It almost looks like a parody of a 1980s team because they just aren't going to have any spacing whatsoever. And so his 3-point shooting and his ability to create his own shot might be more needed on the second unit than it is in the first one.
Yeah, yeah, very, very, very true. It could just be a matter of fit, and that's what's keeping Kuzma on the bench and then Nance in the starting lineup. I agree, Nance hasn't been the best. I mean, Nance still makes good plays out there. I mean, we saw some good combinations with him and Brook Lopez, and I know that's a big factor for the Lakers coaching staff is who fits best with Lopez. But at the outset, when Lopez first came in, everybody thought, man, he's a perfect fit next to Randle, and we haven't really seen that pairing much. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Harrison, is it too early to declare that Larry Nance has actually won the starting power forward job, or do you think it's like a 90% chance he's won it, or where would you put the percentage line on it?
It actually would not surprise me at all if Kuzma ultimately ended up starting, and this is just kind of the coaches being coaches and not wanting to play their hand. But it is, I mean, again, I think that's probably the most likely outcome. But I think it's a little bit more than a 10% chance that he actually starts. I think they might be playing a little bit coy.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that's a lot of Lakers news that came out today, a lot to break down as we're getting ready for the season to open up. By the way, speaking of the season opener, which is going to be next Thursday against the Los Angeles Clippers, the Lakers Nation crew, including myself and Harrison, will be in Los Angeles for the game. We'll be doing a pregame show on Facebook Live, so make sure you guys stop by and check that out. Harrison, thanks so much for hopping on with me today.
Thanks, Trevor. It's always a blast.
All right, guys, that's it for today. Stay tuned for future Lakers news. Whenever anything is breaking, we'll hop on here on the Lakers Nation news feed and give you quick hitting, excellent analysis of it. Thanks, everybody, for listening. My name's Trevor Lane. Find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane. And, of course, follow Harrison Faigen as well. Follow him at HM Faigen. That's Faigen on Twitter. Thanks, everybody. See ya.